Now, we are back. Racial Draft. Hopefully, you guys are still listening. We're taking us home in the season 7 racial draft, the final 2 rounds of said draft. A big part of the strategy I think, is a lot of characters getting drafted over in this season from their respective dynasty rosters. And one pick right off the bat is the South Asian delegation. They made one of the more controversial picks of the last round, of round 10, and I wouldn't say super controversial, but it's we'll get into it. So Cassandra Nova for the South Asian delegation. Um, Obviously, we talked a little bit about Professor X being a person of color, and how that could definitely work. But Cassandra Nova being a person of color, what's your level of exposure to, slash, uh, interest in Cassandra Nova as a character, Randy?
Uh, Mid to low. She's somebody who's come up for me. And I'll say it a million times. I'm a fairly recent reader. And so my first encounter with Cassandra Nova was X-Men Red. The
Oh,
first
that
one.
was your first encounter.
Yeah.
So you didn't read the new X-Men run then?
Well, I had heard about her exploits during that run, but I had not yet read that run.
Okay. I mean, yeah, she was one of the big bads in X-Men Red. I mean, I appreciated her there.
Yeah,
Are you there?
yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had heard that she played a large role in that previous run, but it was like bits and pieces and snippets. So there was like, seeing that she was so like I got, because it references that time.
Hmm.
The X-Men Red references that times, but I didn't get the full waves of how terrible she was.
Yeah.
And so after that, because that was sort of where I, like, from that point reading onward, that was where I read. And so I saw her also show up in Marauders, and I was like, here she is again.
Hmm.
So I know that she's a bad guy, and as far as I can tell, I don't really see any humanizing elements in her like we see in a lot of villains. Like, she just kind of is mustache twirly, just kind
Yeah,
of.
she's like the worst.
Right. She just like, she's one of those characters who just revels in being horrible just for the sake of being horrible.
I mean,
So
I guess we could say that the best possible way of thinking about her is like the same way we said, like, what if Professor X, you know, he's tempted all these times to, to be a better person
right.
despite being able to read and control minds. And Cassandra
Uh-huh.
Nova's like, what if not though? What if not?
Right. Right, exactly. So yeah, I mean, we get the only thing that I can really see coming out of this draft is like, maybe there's a trailer Deadpool that comes out soon or something that finally gives us a peek at Cassandra Nova. Maybe. I doubt it. But like, other than that, I don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
this feels like, because I don't have a. I mean, I have a bias against really caring about the character anyway. But then also, I don't really see where the points are coming in.
Yeah. What I will say is that obviously, um, there's a world where if someone were to draft, obviously they're, she's Charles Xavier's twin sister.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I can't remember, was it Charles or her who tried to eat the other in the womb? Um,
Pretty sure it was
but
her.
yeah, I can't remember which it was. But either way, that sort of animated her motivation. But if in a world where Charles pursues like respectability politics, um, you know, to try to get humanity to be its better angels, Cassandra Nova is pursuing a different app. I mean, it's so weird because she's a mutant, but she's hates mutants a lot of the time. So maybe her motivation is like kind of like an extra added, but for the world's hatred of mutants, I could just be out here prospering, but instead
Mhm.
of like wanting to change herself, she just wants to, you know, eliminate mutants. Like her motivations have always been a little bit uncertain beyond like you said, mustache twirling, villainy, and participation in genocide against her own kind. Um,
I mean, it is like I don't know. It's because it was interesting what Tom Taylor wanted to do with the character in X-Men in the first X-Men Red.
mhm,
Um she sort of like used telepathy to weaponize people's sort of innate instincts, their sort of baser instincts, and like spread rumors and lies and whatnot. And like it was very much sort of, Tom Taylor kind of making his commentary about the prevalence of fake news in our era. Like it was
right.
very much that. But it is kind of interesting how a telepath would weaponize deception and misinformation and rumor, and that sort of not mind control, but sort of giving you that little direction, right? Like
Mhm,
not just, oh, I am taking possession of the president, making him, give me the nuclear football or whatever. Like it's just a little suggestion, just a little hint to kind of move things in the direction you want them to go in. And it is compelling because, even if we didn't like, even if we weren't able to sadly to quote Marvel, to be able to have this be the world outside our window, even if it weren't the case, you could still be like, hmm, if there's anybody who could make that sort of deception and misinformation and fake news thing really work for them, it's somebody who can broadcast thoughts,
yeah.
of their own core. So that it worked really well.
Yeah. No, I hear that. I mean, I do think there's a lot of potential for the character, but I think that the character does need to be fleshed out a little bit more because even when she was in the Marauders book, she was
Yeah.
very much like, "Ooh, I get to just
Right.
get up to just some mischief." Like
Exactly.
she just like seems like likes to do evil.
Right. It
So
was it was still very much mustache twirly. We didn't
yeah.
get we got like, even though it was like, I think it was like Jean Grey gave her
Mhm.
empathy or something like that, and she still was kind of doing these horrible things, and it was like, oh well, it's because now I can feel empathy, that it's, it has a
Actually, you
new
know
kind
what?
of flavor to it now. Actually,
You know what? I just figured it out. Like, imagine someone who actually gets off in the evil thoughts of someone else. Like that's her jam. Like, whereas like you look into someone's mind and you hear and you see their most awful things and you're appalled. Like she looks into people's minds and sees their awful thoughts and goes, "Ooh, nice."
right.
And she's
So,
like,
so now we have to introduce a kink level to it now,
yeah, that's what I'm
instead of
saying. Like her, like versions are her kink. So well, like other people are looking into their thoughts and being horrified, and she's been doing that for her whole life, just looking into people's.
she's that one meme of like the person in the window. He's labeled like sickos. He's like, yes.
That's Cassandra Nova. Like
Oh my god.
she's just loving it. She's loving the mess. Like that's like we're her television show. we're like reality TV. Like she's eating popcorn, watching drama unfold. So I think we solved the character.
I'm not sure I like the solution.
No, we are. Listen, our awfulness is her entertainment.
I I can sort of rock with it, but at the same time, like, yeah. I don't know if I want that to be associated with melanin. I don't know. Let the white folks have that
At
one.
least, listen, at least not our delegation. Maybe
Right. Cause sort of like reveling in the dark gallows humor. It's giving 14-year-old white edgelord. Yeah. I don't know. That's not us.
fair point. I mean, it probably is a better fit. Probably is a better fit for the white delegation, if we're being honest. And perhaps that's why the approval rating. Actually, I was shout out to Elon, because right now the approval rating on this version of the character is 62.5%, which is fairly high. 2.5% approval rating for South Asian Cassandra Nova, but 37.5 strongly approved, 25% somewhat approved, and 37.5 somewhat disapproved, but 0 strongly disapproved.
Oh, that's suspicious.
So everybody's on board to some degree with the browning of Cassandra. Speaking of, that's not even a good transition. Speaking of browning, Polynesian delegation. Shout out to Tamati, who is, playing to win this season, which I love to see. This is a character who is traditionally Australian. That's a big part of his thing, because he's Captain Boomerang. And wouldn't you know it, the Boomerang kind of started with the native people of Australia.
Mm-hmm.
The Polynesian delegation is like, what if?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I could see it. Definitely see it. I mean,
I could definitely see it. He probably wouldn't like a white guy that was associated with the police. They probably wouldn't get along very well. I have a feeling, just a hunch.
So yeah, Captain Boomerang. Like, now, what I sort of imagine with him is that he's a little bit more, like, political. Maybe not political is the wrong term, but like fighting against the man. That like he sees his villainy as, like, even though he's forced as part of the Suicide Squad to serve the, like, in general, his predilection is towards rebellious anarchism, and using the boomerang as kind of like the symbol of what the anarchy against the traditional social structures.
Yeah. I can see it.
Yeah, I can see it too. So let's see if the people agree, though, because I don't think they do. The people, wait for it. Yeah, it was 50%, 50-50. Is that a win? Probably not. 50-50.
I mean, considering, well, no, yeah, that's not a win.
Yeah.
But
and all 50% somewhat approving, with 33 somewhat disapproving, and 16.7 strongly disapproving of a Polynesian Captain Boomerang. But this is a character. This is a character that's like not getting a ton of play in the comics right now. But like, look, the Suicide Squad, they got their video game going on, which didn't hit like they wanted it to, and there's been comics around that Suicide Squad. Obviously, he died in the Suicide Squad movie, but he was a big player in the original Suicide Squad. So he, that's his thing. That's his hookup. They'll find a way I think, to keep him in the mix. As long as there's a Suicide Squad, Captain Boomerang won't be too far away, I don't think.
Yeah,
So,
you can't help feeling like he'll come back around.
like a boomerang, nice. Well played, well played. From mainstay character to a character that's super new, Sir Redwin, the Avatar of the powers that be. You might think, Avatar of the powers that be, that sounds like a white guy. But, maybe not. The Swanamena delegation drafted him. This is a character that's basically a blank slate, if we're being honest. He's been around for thousands of years. No, hundreds of years. So, there's been a lot of moving around, you would think. Um, Even if he's technically speaking British, he doesn't have to be originated from Britain because, someone from that part of the world could have come to England and settled there and lived there for 500 years. So, it's one of those, I could see it. It's not it's not perfect. But again, blank slate. He doesn't have a lot of canon going on. Again, we're both readers of the God's book, and that book, not God's book. That's something totally different. The book in Marvel called Gods, which deals with a lot of sort of metaphysics, and in that book, these metaphysical figures are embodied by people, some of whom could be people of color, some of whom are people of color, and when traditionally depicted as someone who's white or white passing, but some Swana people are white passing.
Yeah.
So, it's not, this definitely feels like a points play because he's the lead of a ongoing Marvel book. And we'll see how things play out we'll see if his story continues, for starters, right? He might be in this one run and then never resurface again.
I mean, so far he hasn't shown up in anything outside of this title. So,
well, he was in. Remember he showed up at the Hellfire Gala.
Oh, what? Well, yeah, but I mean, Krakoa's like about to end, so I don't really
Fair
know.
point. Fair point. I'm just saying that was that was definitely a Hickman flex, though. He was like, "Yeah,
Right.
I'm gonna put my character in this book." It's
Yeah,
like, oh,
yeah.
but yeah, 50-50 is where the people are on this character. 50% strongly approve and 50% somewhat disapprove of Swana Win.
Yeah, I mean, Win hasn't been around doing enough stuff for me to really form a strong opinion in either direction.
Yeah. Speaking of winning, maybe the white delegation and their drafting from their from their dynasty roster. Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. You
Yep.
might have heard of him. He showed up in Echo. He is still kicking around in the comics quite a bit. Isn't he currently running the Hellfire Club for now?
I believe so.
Yeah, he's got his marriage to Typhoid Mary. He's winning. He's doing all right. Former mayor. I don't remember how his run ended. Obviously, it didn't end with him in prison. But obviously, look, he's the Kingpin. You know him. He's going to stay around. He's going to play a major role in whatever happens next in the MCU. And while I can imagine the Kingpin not being a white guy, he's just fine as a white guy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, you don't really have to make too strong of an argument in another direction. I feel like he is like suited as a white guy, and I can still actually like him as a white guy. It works.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that bothered me, as much as I think that rest in peace, Michael Clark Duncan. Even though physically I thought he embodied the character very well, one of the big issues with the Kingpin character is that despite the fact that everybody knows he's a criminal, the charges never stick.
I mean, now
And
that you
that's
think about it,
really all.
there's a bit of current news that kind of might feel a little bit relevant here. That it's a
I mean,
certain Sean of the House of Combs uh, is
Holmes Penn?
up, right is up to no good, but
Yeah, but the
everybody
charges.
knows it. Everybody knows it, but somehow the charges never stick, and cars miraculously blowing up, and I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, you're making a point. We will see this plays out, and
Now,
then maybe
now,
we'll.
now that I'm not, I'm definitely not tipping my hand for who would be my casting pick if I were to draft him. I'm just saying there's an argument to be made.
It's a very recent argument to be made, just to be clear, because there was some serious federal activity happening, which
Yeah, that the FBI descended on him pretty uh, uh severely. So
yeah. And all I would say is that there's another person who is of the Caucasian persuasion who
mhm.
gets impeached and
Yeah,
charged
yeah.
several times with crimes, even loses, but finds a way to win while losing.
And is still very much running for president.
Yes. So to you, one level of privilege and another level
Right.
of privilege. You
Like I
know,
say, I don't dismiss or undermine what their victims are going through, but you know, the ugly reality is there. The argument could definitely be made.
no, I feel you. I feel you. We'll revisit this in a subsequent season. Indictments, pending.
Not pending, right? Exactly.
Yes, but 66.6% approval rating for seems to be very common for white. 6.6% approval rating for the still white Kingpin. I got no objection on my end for that one, so we will keep it moving. This one, I think this one's a smart one. Multiracial delegation, the Skeleton Crew delegation, drafted Deadshot, who has been depicted as white and also depicted as black.
Uh-huh.
So maybe there's a one version that got a tan and one version that didn't. That's Floyd Lawton.
Yeah, I mean his from what I've seen of him, and like I say, I don't proclaim to be an expert on the character by any means, but what I've seen of him is very sort of there's no particular racial or cultural ties to his background. Is
Yeah,
very easy
the
to
only
say.
thing
Yeah.
so the only thing about him that when I did a little bit of research on him is that it's a character who sort of like made up his listen to this. He's a character who sort of made up his backstory. Like he
Mm.
actually came from money, but
Mm.
he like put out there that he didn't to like give him more like credibility
Yeah,
in the
street
criminal.
cred.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's very light skin coded if we're being honest. That's
It's giving Aubrey. Yeah, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
it's giving exactly. It's giving Aubrey. It reinforces the idea of Deadshot. Obviously he has that whole like sympathetic.
Cosplay gangster, fake accent. A lot.
So I like it. Honestly, I really do like multiracial Like even better, like from a casting perspective, would be like if he was kind of like white passing
Mm-hmm.
for some of his life, and then kind of darker, and he's like, I'm black though, you
Oh,
know.
that's too funny.
So here for it. He's like, or am I not one of your favorite black villains? So yeah, for the culture, multiracial Deadshot.
He
Couldn't
goes
be
to
played by Will
prison.
Smith. Couldn't be
He
played by.
goes to prison and he has to like kind of look cautiously at his cellmates before he chooses the N word when he sings along with the songs.
There we go. You see the vision. You see the vision. So yes, approval rating 66.7%. Approval rating 50% strongly approved, 16.7 somewhat approved, 33.3 somewhat disapprove of multiracial Deadshot. And again, he is also he's dead in the books, but much alive on all the other media. So we may find a way to make Deadshot a live shot. But moving on to another, well, not another, but a defensive pick. It took they were able to strategize and wait this long. The East Southeast Asian delegation, with what I consider to be great value, Shang-Chi.
Yep.
Uh, there's not too much to be said. He gets to stay. Chinese. He's obviously he's not as prominent as he was when his movie was coming out, but he had a little mini
Yeah,
series.
he had a mini and he was part of the Thunderbolts title.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I mean, honestly, I kind of wish he was part of the Thunderbolts movie, for being honest. But he
I think he is. I think he is.
I don't think it's been
I think
confirmed. I mean, maybe it's rumored.
I have to go back and see. I think he is, but like I say, development of that movie, I haven't really heard a whole lot about it. But I mean, see, now that I'm on the subject, let's see.
Yeah, but yeah, I forgot he was part of the Thunderbolts book, even though I just recently finished it. But I mean, I like spy Shang-Chi more than I like just like street level vigilante Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
So anytime you can sort of tie him in with the espionage world, I'm a fan. And since he's still got that 5 weapon society deal going on,
Mm-hmm.
and of course the 10 rings have given him quite a bit of a power up in terms of being
Yeah.
able to deal
To
with
handle much bigger threats. Yeah. Yep.
exactly. So, I mean, I think big things are still on the horizon for Shang-Chi, and I think that he's already. I'm not going to put you on the spot here, but in terms of like Asian Marvel characters, he's in the conversation for most prominent.
Yeah. I mean, they're you know, it's him, it's Kamala Khan, and I mean, yeah, yeah.
Silk is out there too.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I mean, Shang-Chi's probably ahead.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the East Southeast Asian delegation, 83.3% approval rating for Shang-Chi. That 16.7 is looking real suspect out there. Who's out? Who's disapproving? Is it just the Trumpers?
I think it's the folks who supported my drafting of Shang-Chi a couple of seasons ago. They're like, why didn't you bring him back? Like, okay,
No,
fine.
I don't support
Maybe
that.
next season.
I've never supported Black Shang-Chi. No, even so.
I mean, in the movie, he changed. He's like Sean. I'm like, okay, fine. Maybe I can go ahead and use him as Sean.
Chinese Sean, just Chinese Sean. I mean, he's friends with Aquafina. I feel like that's as black as you can get. So moving on from Shang-Chi to a character that's probably a little bit more controversial, I'd say. Hal Jordan, drafted out off of the dynasty roster for the Jewish delegation. Obviously, well, I won't say obviously. I don't think many people know that Hal Jordan is canonically Jewish. But
No,
you know,
that's definitely not something that most people would know.
yeah, I mean, I would say that a lot of people, he's just white privilege personified. You know, that
Hmm.
they say it's willpower, but maybe it's privilege, and maybe that's why he's
I
can
mean,
draw.
like I feel that the perception, and maybe it's just projecting my own perception, but my first impression was that this mediocre white guy was just pushed as Green Lantern just because it's him, not because he's particularly interesting or particularly qualified, you know. But the story sort of gives the impression that he's like, oh, he's got such great willpower. And that would, that's me uninformed as somebody who has not actually read Green Lantern comics.
Yeah, so I
But,
mean,
you
I
come
think
along
that
later and see that.
yeah, so I think that the time frame, and I don't remember exactly when Greenland was created, but I want to say the 1960s. I think that the time frame was that he was, he's a fighter pilot.
Hmm.
He's American. He's got a little bit of that like Maverick in him, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I think that he was probably modeled after like Captain Kirk from Star Trek.
Hmm.
This idea of like the American that doesn't quite play by the rules, even though he's out in space, where they have a particular way that they go about doing things.
Hmm.
So and again, that's very white privilege coded, right? That's very
Yeah.
cowboy. Um,
The rules
what
apply to
I
everybody but me. Yeah.
Exactly. And I could see how his popularity ties into that. You've got all these aliens, and then it's this one American white man, who's bringing his ego to the table, and and that's I guess why it makes sense that he would be not Jewish, just regular white. Um, but there's a world where you know having carried the weight or carrying the weight of his people's of what his people endured gives him sort of an extra boost of willpower. Um,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? That
Yeah.
it's not just about being a white man, you can't tell me nothing, but being a Jewish man, you can't tell me nothing. Um,
I mean, it's especially when you go to these worlds that are like, you know, you're expected to respect these alien cultures,
mhm,
and that's all well and good. But then you do see that there are some worlds that's just like, we have this caste system, or
mhm,
we have this system that's like, oh, well, slavery is just a normal thing.
mhm,
And so you kind of have, do you really have do you prioritize the decorum of it all over like what you know to be wrong or what you know to
yeah.
be right?
Right, and that's what I was gonna say. Like the most sympathetic sort of reading of Hal
Hmm.
Jordan is that like he has a very strong system of justice
Hmm.
that transcends whatever the cultural norms might be.
Hmm.
That he's gonna go to places that have things that are normal
Right.
to them, and he's like, nope, doesn't seem fair, doesn't seem
Yeah.
just. So even though my edicts as a Green Lantern say I shouldn't interfere, I'm going to do it anyway. And
If
and again,
you come from a people who have suffered from genocide or from other kind of systemic oppression, it's going to be incredibly hard, probably impossible to ignore it if you see it somewhere else.
exactly, and 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 why I think that could work for Jewish Hal Jordan more so than, other sort of people of color, is that, I mean, he still gets to come back to Earth and be kind of chilling, like
Right.
compared to like a Jon Stewart who's like, hey, you're out. I mean, this is a big part of Jon Stewart's story when he meets Hal Jordan. He's like, you're out here fighting for the rights of all these other alien species, and that's
Hmm.
all well and good, but like, you don't fight nearly as hard for like black people, like in
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and what they deal with,
Yeah.
because he is still kind of like pro police and pro authority, like here on Earth. Um, so it's a tough dichotomy for him, but I think it's one that probably does work with
Hmm.
Hal Jordan more so than any of the other delegations. So kind of here for it as we talked it out.
It works. It works.
Yeah. Um, let's find out what the people think, though. Wait for it.
Hmm.
50%. So it's 50-50. 50-50 here. 50 all, 50 strongly approved, 30 somewhat disapproved, and 20 strongly disapprove. But I get it. I mean, I get it. This is Hal Jordan, one of the more controversial.
Well, yeah, but it's also Twitter, so like anti-Semitic. Like, yeah, it's
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I was also going to say, like, I mean, that's a lot of power put in the hand.
Right. I mean, yeah, yeah, I can get but like I've had too many conversations, um, or arguments on Twitter that are like, well, uh, does he have to be Jewish? And they're like, bruh, it's Magneto. Yes, he has to be Jewish, right? Like that.
Right.
Yes, you know. So even for a character that is has his Jewishness very deeply ingrained, people will still argue you into the ground. Like, actually, I think Henry Cavill would be great for the role. So, so like, yeah,
Okay. You,
I'm
you, you
surprised.
do. Yeah, you make a fair point. You make a fair point. There's probably a lot of people out there, Elon included, that are like, yeah, Hal, just let Hal be white man. So moving from, yeah, I got nothing here. Black delegation, Amanda Waller, staying black.
Yes, absolutely. Amanda Waller is she is very much the black woman who has worked very hard to get into her position. She is valued for her mind, and as much as she wanted to try to like help with society, she very much ended up becoming in her own human way, like as opposed to a mutant or what have you. She very much became the villain that she was trying to sort of protect again. Like she's like she has to she resorts to these villainous means, and yes, the means is like, I want to protect, I want to keep us safe, I want to make sure that we have.
We're losing you. Hopefully you come back. You're making a good point.
Man, I was on a riff.
I know
Okay.
you had a run going.
But basically, Amanda Waller is a person who we have her in this protective kind of role. That's sort of her whole thing. Like, she wants to try to make sure that people are safe, and from whatever threat. And it's very similar to the Batman mindset, right? Prepare for everything, have contingency and prep time and blah blah blah. But she takes it to such an extreme that you even Batman, in all his paranoia, and all of his sort of like the starkness of his ability to make tough choices, he's like, no, you're going too far.
Yeah. But here's why, like, this is a spin on the character that I
Hmm.
think actually really strongly works, because at the end of the day, Batman is still a white man,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
and his relationship to looking at these superheroes, these metahumans, and all these powerful beings, and like what they could mean for him.
Hmm.
He still has the fallback position that he's a billionaire white man,
Yep.
whereas Amanda Waller looks around at this world of superheroes where like 99.9% of them are white people, you know, and she's like, yeah, I don't really trust that. Like I really don't. I don't think
Right. That's,
like
I mean, yeah.
maybe if there were more superheroes who looked like us, I'd feel a little bit better about it. But all I see is a bunch of white
And
powered people.
and on top of that, one of the smartest people in the world, also one of the most dangerous, is Lex Luthor.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I get it. I feel like, but like it's sort of, you have the idea of like the black person who is like on the side of the police, like they think that the best way to sort of ensure safety is, I have to be inside the system, I have to be inside
Yeah.
the government in order for me to be the most effective that I can be.
Or I,
And
I, I was going to say,
it may
I was
not.
going to say, taking it a
Right.
step further, that like I need to be there, because if
Yeah.
I'm not there, if it's not me,
Hmm.
then then we really don't trust these
Yeah,
systems. Like,
that too.
like it's funny that we like the name The Wall or whatever.
Hmm.
It's a play on her name, but it's also that she sees herself. You know how in Marvel, Nick Fury says, I'm the man on the wall or whatever. Like, but
Yeah.
she's like, I am the wall. Like, I'm the thing that protects regular
Right.
people.
Standing between people and like chaos. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, or even beyond chaos. I would say between people and authoritarian, like not authoritarian.
She's
Yeah, but if it's her authority, yes. But like,
right. Exactly. Exactly.
but it's like I don't, I don't. She doesn't necessarily trust the
Look,
government.
look, look, look. Okay, so it's the black woman equivalent of like feeling like she has to, like it's not going to be done as well unless I'm the one doing it. Like that
Exactly.
kind of, it's like it makes me think of like how
It almost makes me think of Twitter. You know how like on Twitter there's like the meme of like, let a black woman like save us. Like,
right. But it's funny to me because it does actually remind me of a few women family members of mine who are like, they'll ask you to do something and you try to do it, but you don't really kind of know how to do it because you're so used to them doing it. And then when they see you from, it's like, dang, just move, let me do it. I'll do it myself. You can't like, and it's not like you're trying to do it, but clearly they're better suited for it and they know how to do it better. And it's like, that I feel was taken to like the sort of government extreme version of that.
yeah,
And it's like, you wanted to have somebody who is in this authority position. You wanted somebody who was capable and educated and blah 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 blah. Okay, fine. So here's the double-edged sword of that, is that also she's a bit of a control freak.
hmm
So I love it. I really do.
yeah. And like, this is the unfortunate part, right? The unfortunate part is that she was created at a time when a lot of white people were afraid of black people, and they were
Uh-huh.
afraid of exactly that. They were
Yeah.
afraid of a black woman with a lot of power who was unafraid of wielding that power and made no apologies and no excuses or no, softening. Like she has no need
Right.
for
No need for their affirmation. Right.
right.
Exactly.
Like she's gonna make sure, like she's not afraid of anything, and she's
Yeah,
not
and
afraid of anyone.
it's it's so particularly funny because the image that they paint of her is like, yes, she's this control freak. Absolutely. She's paranoid, like just through the roof. But she's also usually the smartest person in the room and the best qualified to do the thing that you need to get done. Specifically because of all of the things that you dislike about her, like as prickly as she is as a person, that is exactly what you need to get whatever threat neutralized. I love it. It's so compelling. I love it.
Yeah, like, and sort of, I guess, like the final point that I'll put on it is that, how, like, I mean, I'm gonna assume that you have a similar experience to mine, where it's like when, like, your parent is like, "I'm not your friend,"
Right,
like,
exactly.
if
I'm
if
not one of
you
your little friends. Right.
if you want to hate me, that's fine, but
Right.
I believe that
It's what's best. Right.
I'm doing the right thing, and if you
Exactly.
need to hate me, for me to keep you safe, if you
Yep.
need to hate me
Yep.
for, uh, that's fine. I don't have a problem with you cursing me
Right.
out when I'm not around. You know what I mean? But you will respect me, and you will respect
Yeah.
what I'm
Exactly.
trying to do here. And
Exactly.
like nobody can embody that like a black woman can.
It's perfect. It really is.
So, you know, obviously, it helps. Like, you could have kept her on the dynasty roster, and obviously wouldn't have had an issue with that. But Amanda Waller's having a moment, a continuing moment in the comics.
Hmm. Yep.
Obviously, her show probably won't. Well, show's not dropping this year, I don't think. But so you may have to scoop her back up. But at the same time, like she's. We were talking about the Suicide Squad. Like she's all over that video game, just handling her business. Um, she's having a moment in the comics. I think she's like basically taking over the world, basically more or less.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Her being anything other than black. And for that reason, 100% approval rating for Black Amanda Waller. Someone out there is somewhat approving, but most are strongly approving of still Black Amanda Waller.
Yep.
Moving on, this one's a little more controversial, but I you have to say it the way it's meant to be said. Bizarro, Latino Bizarro. Other than that, I'm not really sure how to make it work. Um,
As
how
long as you
does
roll the R, it works.
how does one make Bizarro Latino? Um, is it that they conducted the Superman cloning experiments in South America? Is that how we're gonna do it?
I
Um,
mean, he crossed the border between Bizarro world and our world, so maybe that counts.
oh, you're going with that origin that he's from like
I mean, like they're saying that Bizarro world is a thing, so I will take it.
yeah, but then that would mean that Bizarro world is just like Spanish speaking world, like that's weird.
Well, yes. There you go.
Okay, Donald.
There you go. You're welcome.
Okay, apparently I didn't hear from me, but apparently Bizarro World is just our world with
There,
Sofrito.
there you go. There you go.
It's cubic, but
Right.
well, we'll workshop it. We'll try to figure out what it means to be, if it's just a Bizarro thing or a whole Bizarro world that has been, racially drafted for the Latino side. But in any event, it's not crazy. It's just crazy out of context. You know, it would be funny though if like you all this time we thought that his like verbs and subjects were not matching up, but it's just because he's speaking Spanish, like with like
Right. He's trying to translate Spanish to English. Right,
right,
exactly.
broken English. It's like the Yoda thing, like he's just trying his best to translate. It's not his first language. English is not his first language. That's funny. Approval wise, 71.5% approval, 28.6 strongly approve, 42.9 somewhat approve, 14.3 somewhat disapprove, and 14.3 racist. Moving on from Bizarro is one of our other dynasty picks, which doesn't really warrant much discussion. Maya Lopez, aka Echo. I believe you've heard of her. I believe you watched her show, and all the show did was even further solidify how important she is to the Native American delegation and to the community. So we hope that it's 100% approval rating. Those hopes would be dashed because only 85.7%.
I mean, the other percentage was like Lopez. That's Latina. That's who do you where's Carlos? Why didn't he draft her?
And they saw Lopez and they immediately went borders.
Right.
Moving on, we are now in the final round, the 12th round. A lot of dynasty picks here. Starting us off, Native American Mara. I would say that Native American Mara is probably like in the same avenue of Namor.
Yeah.
She's from Zebel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Zebel is the more militant kingdom of
Yep.
Atlantis. I feel like Zebel can basically be what Talokan is, if we
I
really think about
mean, they certainly have more like prominent characters with melanin.
it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here for any kind of woman of color for Mara, but Native American Mara, sure, I can rock with it. Moving on. Oh, sorry. The approval? 50-50. No, worse than 50-50. I apologize. Worse. 33% approval rating for Native American Mara. 16.7 strongly approved, 16.7 somewhat approved, 50% somewhat disapproved, and 16.7 strongly disapproved. So somebody
Amber Heard fans.
is
Like
that what it is? Is that what
I'm
it
not.
is? Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
some of the people were like they specifically wanted Amber Heard, or some people were like they didn't like Amber Heard, and so any portrayal of Mira is just bad. Like
Uh, I was thinking it might be the ginger side people, where they're like,
with them too, right? Exactly. So
they're like
like that's
red
right,
hair, not
exactly.
red skin.
A lot working against her on that one.
Yeah, fair point. That's true, merit. But yeah, fair point. Now here's one of the picks that I really like, and from the Latinx delegation, General Zod, Drew Zod, Latino. It's just something about Zod that seems like very like generalissimo coded.
when
Very.
when he when he makes his next conquest, whenever he wins, he defeats the enemy, he laser visions a Z like Zorro. That's it works. It works.
Nice, nice. I mean, I'm just saying he's very South American dictator coded. Like you can
Yes,
totally,
yes.
he's got the aesthetic for it. Like
Facial
he's
hair on point. Exactly.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say that exactly. So yeah, I'm here. I'm here for Zod or Thod. Depending on whether you're Castilian or not. You know. But sadly, approval rating very low, 40%
Oh, they
approval. All 40 strongly approve, 40 somewhat disapprove, and 20 strongly disapprove. that strikes me as just the fear of the Latino Zod. It's like,
All that machismo, like they just that's hateration. I don't like that.
speaking of hateration, uh, the Jewish delegation, they also drafted off of their dynasty roster Lois Lane,
Mm-hmm.
who, I would say not not Jewish coded per se, but not Jewish coded.
Like, I mean, but like there's already the sort of like this ongoing trope of like Jewish people in the media. So I mean, why not? Why
Yeah, but
not?
here's the thing. She's in the media, but she's not like running the Daily Planet. You know what I
No,
mean?
I know that. Well, I mean, she's kind of running it now. She's
Oh,
the
oh,
like
good
the
point. Good point. Good point.
she's like like the head person. Like she's but I mean, not that you want to lean into those negative tropes anyway. But I mean, if you wanted to take that and play with that and put it in and spin it in a positive context, who better to do that with? Like
Yeah,
it works.
I think it works too. I mean, look, Rachel Brosnahan, who is playing her in, she's not Jewish herself. In
Mhm.
Superman Legacy, she's not Jewish herself, but she's played Jewish characters before.
Hmm.
The talented Mrs. Maisel, or sorry, marvelous Mrs. Maisel. There we go. So I mean, I can definitely see it, but the people, they don't see it. 42.9% approval rating for Jewish Lois Lane. All 42.9 strongly approve, but 42.9 somewhat disapprove, and 14.3 strongly disapproving of Jewish Lois Lane. Who knew? Who knew that there were
14, you say? Like
14?
the 14 words? Oh, I see.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. Huh.
Okay. Ooh. Moving on from Lois Lane to more alliteration in Otto Octavius, aka Doc Ock, and he's also being drafted out of the dynasty roster by the East Southeast Asian delegation.
I
And
see.
I gotta be honest, I know that he's traditionally been depicted as a white man, but I could totally see East Asian Doc.
Well, specifically the guy that they chose for the visual reference. Yeah.
Yeah. Why am I forgetting his name?
Mafioka, I think it is. Because he played
No, no, no.
they
They
chose
chose Matsuoka at his
last season.
last season, yeah. But no,
Uh
they chose for this one. They give me a second. Do do do.
hmm.
Oh man, I'm drawing a blank. I'm seeing his face, but I'm forgetting his name. BD Wong. Yes.
Oh, right. Yeah, that works too. Exactly. That works. That works.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that BD Wong is a little bit more charming than traditionally
Right.
Dr. Octopus is.
Exactly. Right. But yeah, I
But like
mean
to the extent that the stereotype of like the Asian scientist,
mhm.
is who's like very smart, but maybe not charming and smooth and cool.
Yeah,
Um,
and I feel like you could easily craft a story where he gives himself a less Asian sounding name and is very disgruntled by the fact that he's denied opportunities and denied accolades and all this other stuff because of the fact that he's Asian and he's presumed to be this sort of like, passive guy and
yeah.
and
Well,
constantly
especially
so.
like there have been versions of his story where he's worked for Oscorp and like
Mhm.
Norman basically like is constantly taking credit for
Yeah.
you know
Yep.
and he kind of loses it. Just
Mhm.
gets annoyed with being constantly overlooked. And I think that that is a part of not necessarily always the sort of Asian American experience, but at least a trope of the Asian American experience of being
Mhm.
overlooked and thought of as not um, a character that should be forefronted.
Yeah.
And to the extent that that can be motivation for a villain arc, I definitely think it could be.
And furthermore, he played a very intriguing version of Hugo Strange on Gotham. So,
which I mean, I had stopped watching Gotham by that point, so
oh man, you missed it. It was good. It was very good.
But yeah, BD Wong, I've been a fan of his work in a lot of other things. I think he would kill the role, honestly. So yeah, I mean, I'm here for it, and I'm sure there are some people who would say, "Well, wasn't there already Asian Spider-Man villains?" But they can be more than one.
Right, exactly.
Not just Mr. Negative, guys. It can also be Dr. Octopus. So yes, 77.8% approval rating for East Asian Doc Ock. 55.6 strongly approve, 22.2 somewhat approve, and 22.2 somewhat disapprove. Yeah, for sure, I'm here for it. This one is a little. Well, we talked about Zod earlier. This is Zod's son, Lord Zod. You might know him from that season of Young Justice. You also might know him in the comics from the Evil Super Sons. I think it's called Sinister Sons. Is that right?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. So Zod's got a little shit child that he gets up to mischief, and I'd buy it. I buy his little multiracial boy. He's just hyped up, waiting for his opportunity to show his dad that he can he's got something to prove. Let's be honest. A lot of light skinned people don't. But yeah, in Young Justice, he was black. Well, no, he was multiracial in Young Justice. He was black multiracial, but he was still multiracial. Because his mother was at least white presenting, if not white herself. And of course, he had the haircut, which we all know and love. That infamous haircut. But yeah, Lord Zod, multiracial. Obviously, I could see it. There's not a lot to his character, like, because he was a character from years ago, and then they kind of rebooted the character as an alternative to Jonathan Kent, I think. So we'll see how it plays out, whether he gets aged up like Jonathan Kent did, and he becomes a rival to him. Would you like to see that, or do you like him as a kid?
I mean, I will admit that I have not actually seen a whole lot with Lord Zod in it. He's one who just two ships passing in the night. I've not crossed him, but what other people mention of him, I would be intrigued if
Did you see him in? Did you were watching Young Justice when that season he was in it, right?
I didn't. Nope.
Oh,
yeah. First, I'm behind on Young Justice. I'm behind on a lot of shows, but I've heard just sort of like there were a few complaints that people didn't really want to see him be like an evil mirror of John Kent, but I'm like, I don't know. John might actually benefit from it just because the current direction with his character, and I use the word direction loosely, is kind of like it's not really it isn't spicy. Like you would think on paper that it would be, but it's just not. So I feel like John would actually benefit from having somebody like that. Not just over in like the Super Sons, over in the main continuity. So to have that and they be rivals, maybe even romantic rivals, I don't know, who knows? But they could be like, just he needs something to spice him up, because last time we saw John Kent, he was hugging a fascist. Like that image is not going away. That perception of John Kent now, that Tom Taylor thought he cooked with that. I'm sorry, no shade to him. I mean, a little bit of shade, but
in all fairness, that fascist was alternate universe version of his dad. So
not his dad though. You,
I
right?
know.
Yeah,
I,
like it's I don't know.
I see what he was going for there, is what I'm saying. Like he
Well,
was going for the
yeah, but
you know,
it's tough. It's tough to even to be like it's his dad. Like no, but it's not his dad. It's like a version of his dad that is evil. That's like if
no. But remember, this was in the Injustice universe, so this was like he lost Lois, and
yeah,
yeah, and it
but
turned him. You know
yeah,
what I mean? It was
but
like
but it's social media. You have to like go through a whole lot of nuance to get to that point. All they're seeing is he's hugging a fascist.
yeah.
They don't really care about the context. So I
I
feel
mean,
like
fair. Listen, while that's a fair point, I also happen to be, and maybe this is an age thing. I'm from the generation where apparently Darth Vader could be redeemed. Despite
Darth
like
Vader can only be redeemed because of the fact that he's cool. That's literally it. That's it. I hate to say it, but I feel like that's literally the only reason why people are like, maybe give him a chance. Because he has the cool force powers and whatnot, and he's an icon. He's an icon. But Superman, we just got done with Zack Snyder putting Superman through the meat grinder in terms
mhm,
of the PR perception. And so to now turn around and say that, and a lot of people now they're like, we get these complaints about like, oh, my uncle or my dad is so racist or whatever. Like we our political environment simply does not allow for that image to be received as he
mhm.
expected it to be received. It simply does not.
I mean that is a fair point. I guess I was just looking at it purely in the realm of like this is a character that's supposed to be a bit of a tragic character because he
Yeah,
experienced profound loss and it turned him evil. And this is like rather than bringing his lowest back and
right.
trying to get him, to the right side that way, having
Mhm.
his alternate universe son try to do it. Like it seems in keeping with it actually doesn't seem like a violation of what the character is, especially when you add in the fact that John had that like he was aged up, so he's supposed to be a little bit more naive about
Right.
things and a little bit more um idealistic.
Yeah, I just feel like the fact of that image, specifically that image, but specifically that image compounded with the sort of lackluster, like a lot of people sort of complained about how his solo title, John King,
Mhm,
felt like just sort of this idealistic and sort of performative, empty thing
mhm.
that was like supposed to be a feel good white liberal, like, look, it's Superman, but like it didn't convey, it didn't really hit home like he thought it was going to.
Yeah, no,
And
that part I can agree with. I mean,
what,
I think that
what,
Jonathan Kent, like the fact that they didn't really do the work with Jonathan Kent,
mhm,
like they, I can understand them not wanting to, like, I think it was a bad decision, but I can understand them saying, you know, we don't want him to have him be the kid Superboy.
right,
Um, we want to shoot him to the top of the list and make him like Superman.
yeah.
But in skipping those steps, you don't really fill the character in with enough
Well,
depth.
I feel like the steps could have been filled in even with them having aged him up, but the execution just was not there. And as much as I wanted to root for the character, they sort of took a lot of turns that felt like shortcuts. It wasn't just the aging up. It was also sort of like he was also smarter about how he used his powers. He was also like you know, all of a sudden jumps into this relationship with Jay Nakamura. And also, like, it just felt like a whole lot that was not necessarily bad choices, but the pacing with which they happened. And there just was a lot going on. And it felt also like there was nothing going on.
Well,
Like there was
I
a
also
lot
think that
of
was
added
part of the
stuff.
flaw. I also think part of the flaws of doing Future State.
Hmm.
We don't have to get into the whole big, DC, how the problems that they've created for themselves. But like
Yeah,
Future State was like, we don't actually want to commit to these being the status quo, but we want to
right.
give you a taste of what the status quo like
You
could be.
you you want to have the plausible deniability in case it doesn't go over well.
And they wanted to show us like what it would look like if DC Universe was more diverse.
Hmm. Yeah,
And then they were
yeah.
like, but not for realsies, not for realsies. Just
And not only if it was more diverse, but if the main slash only way in which it was diverse is if we got rid of the iconic characters and put brown people in their spot, as opposed to like elevating a Black Lightning or elevating a Vixen or have, who, whatever. Like it was very frustrating. And to that end, I will say John was like, it felt like that prior to even getting hit by Future State. Like that was what it felt like. That's what his arc felt like. It felt like you wanted to try to get the points of, and I hate to say it, I really do. Like it leaves an ugly taste in my mouth to even say stuff like this, because I want to be able to root for a character that is, first of all, just the character himself, but also rooting for the representation and all that other
mhm.
stuff. But it felt very hollow. It did.
Yeah.
And I felt
But
myself. Yeah, go ahead.
but the thing is, like, I don't think it was hollow. I just think I think that the execution was a little clunky. You know,
Yes.
but I hope that they stick with it. And obviously he doesn't have a solo right now, but I hope that they sort of stick with it because in time, writers will get in there and they'll do the work
Tom
to flesh
Taylor
out
ain't
the
going
character.
nowhere. Tom Taylor ain't going nowhere.
I mean,
I
but
can't,
that's what I'm
can't,
saying.
can't
Like
do
I'm a fan of Tom Taylor in general. You know what I mean?
Yes.
He
All
doesn't.
right. Yes.
Yeah. So like, sometimes you put the cart before the horse. Honestly, I think in a lot of ways you could look at like Miles Morales
Hmm.
and say that there were some years in there that it didn't really feel like they were doing all the work to fill up.
Oh, there was a good long while, and I would argue up until Saladin Ahmed hit the scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So using that as sort of a blueprint of how like the idea of a character
Hmm.
is a little bit further along than the character
Yeah.
himself.
Yes.
You could see the same kind of playing out with Jonathan Kent. That
Yes.
there's been a couple stumbles along the way, but you know someone could get it right. Someone could really find a voice for that character.
Hmm.
And like I respect the effort. I think we've talked about this before. I respect the effort that they've been making an effort, even if I can say that they haven't been, their track record, their percentage isn't, 1,000. It's not 100
Well,
percent.
I will agree in that regard, because they definitely could have just dropped him like a hot potato. Because I've definitely been disappointed by how they've done some characters recently. Uh, cough, cough, Naomi. But yeah, they're persisting with trying to do right by him, and like sort of try and find his niche, and I do appreciate that much.
Yeah, but again, we've said this before, and I really do believe that aging him up was a misstep because the Super Sons thing was so gold.
Yeah.
And they could have really allowed both him and Damien to organically like age up and
Hmm.
and work. And now they're sort of forced to kind of pull Damien to being older in order to match as much as they can, the energy of Jonathan, which, I think it'll be fine because Damien actually does have a lot going for him, plus he's part of the Bat family.
Yeah.
But going back to what we were talking about before with the Sinister Sons, I think that they'll probably have to age them up in order to create that rivalry with Jonathan
Something
and Damien.
lasting anyway. If like, I mean, because if if they wanted to, they could be like, oh yeah, over in that universe. But if they want them to actually last, then yeah, they're gonna have to age them up too.
Yeah, but you know, let me know like when you do watch Young Justice. Let us know or let me know, and I'll uh, you know relay that to the listeners what you
Yeah.
think about the character because there's potential there. Zod is Zod. Like I think he's pretty well solidified in what the character represents, and you're either in for it or you're not. But I think that
Hmm.
there's a little more wiggle room and a little bit more a blank slate when it comes to Lord Zod.
Okay.
To that end, 66.7% approval rating for multiracial Lorzad, all 66.7 strongly approving, and the 33.3 somewhat disapproving. Um, Another new character, also coming in off the Dynasty, is Spider Boy. Um, I got to be honest, I'm sort of like mixed on Spider Boy. I know that he's what's his name, Dan Slott's pet project.
Hmm.
Um, but like I don't need him. I really don't. I really don't need Spider Boy. Um, but he's there. He's out there.
I got Miles. I'm good. Like that, but like he is very much Dan Slott's his bestie right now. He's got his own very unique, interesting powers and all of that. So Slot is making very clear this is not like a little mini Peter Parker. He's not a little mini Miles Morales. He's his own character. Um,
And he
he,
is. I mean, I'll give him that. It's just that
mhm.
like I didn't. I just don't need a little kid Spidey right now.
Yeah,
Like
I wouldn't be surprised if they added him to like the little animated cartoon kid show that Spidey and his amazing friend. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up on that show. But like that's kind of the full. I feel like that's definitely is Slot's personal. He wants to make his mark with that one.
yeah. I mean, I do see the potential for the character, just maybe 5 years from now rather than like right now.
Yeah.
Because there's always room. I mean, from a pure marketing business perspective, there's always room for like a little kid that has superpowers. We were just talking about Super Sons, right?
Hmm.
And one of the things, and I think it was a task that we were talking about the idea of Spider Boy like being like someone that the other spiders had to basically like babysit, um, like raise up. Um,
Yeah.
like I could see that being, one way of distinguishing him from Damian Wayne is instead of having one mentor, one character that he's trying
Hmm.
to emulate, he's trying like it's a collective effort. You know, he's like
Yeah.
the lack of a better term, like the mascot of the spider realm.
Yeah, I mean, he's in a very interesting position. He's homeless and nobody remembers him and he's kind of bouncing around and interacting with all the different spiders. So it feels like the being raised by the village is sort of
Yeah.
inevitable for him.
And yeah,
So I
remember
mean,
he's living out of feast, so that means he's got a
yeah,
lot of exposure to, to Aunt May,
yeah,
like so, you know, he's really not that far away from what if Spider-Man, but even younger.
right.
So I get the appeal. I'm just not feeling it myself. But,
Yeah,
like
it's not
delegation.
it's not for me, but he has his own title and he's showing up in other spider stuff. There is no shortage of spider stuff. So he's definitely got a home, a bit of stomping grounds up in there.
Yeah, and it's at this point it's hard to imagine him anything other than a white guy right at this very moment.
Yeah.
Because there's so much of his story that hasn't been written yet. So
I
that makes
definitely
sense.
don't need him to be black, being homeless and
Oh
like
yeah.
being monstrous part spider.
Yes, yes. All
Subject to human experiments. Yeah, no, y'all can keep him.
Mhm. Yeah, points are being made. All of those points are being made. So yeah, so Bailey Briggs, uh, stick with the white delegation for now until we swoop in, because your hair's looking a little gingery. So
I mean, he might get cooler later, and then we'll have to
then we'll
snatch him
talk
up.
about it. Right.
Yeah, right.
Another defensive pick from the Swanamania delegation. Uh, this one's an interesting one because, like, we talked about Moon Knight, and we talked about how like his powers come from an Egyptian god, but
Mm-hmm.
he's not Egyptian himself. But they recently introduced another fist Khonshu, one that
Mm-hmm.
is in fact Egyptian. Um, Hunter's Moon. Uh,
Yep.
there was so you have Mr. Knight as one of the personas, and you have Dr. Moon, as the equivalent.
Yeah.
There's still more fleshing out that needs to be done. I like that he was introduced kind of like as a villain first. Um,
Mm-hmm.
basically feeling like Mark had strayed from the path, but was, quickly redeemed, and now he's on the side of the heroes. There's still a lot of his story that's yet to be told, but I think he was a fine addition to the mythos of Moon Knight, and the fact that he's actually Egyptian. To
Yeah.
me, you know, this is like what we're striving for sometimes when you introduce a new character, um, you know, in the sense of representation.
He's somebody who offers camaraderie, but also offers that, like, you know in a way that Marlene and Frenchie could not, right? Like he offers the camaraderie, he offers insight. He really does feel like an older brother figure to Mark,
Mhm.
and but at the same time he can be sort of the I don't know, not just offering information and not just being like, okay, we're both fists of Khonshu, but also kind of like snap to your senses. Like he knows how to kind of be that too, and sort
Mhm.
of like give him the talking to that somebody else who is not a fist of Khonshu or who is not a superhero couldn't really offer to him, that he couldn't really get him to listen. Like you have somebody who is really, really, really kind of in your same predicament, or a very similar predicament, and they're handling it differently. But not only are they handling it differently, they're handling it like way better.
Yeah,
So you kind of have no choice but to be like, hmm, maybe they have a point.
yeah. And I mean, who knows? Obviously, the character hasn't existed long enough for us to know for sure whether it's all a big setup for an elaborate Hunter's Moon sacrifice in order to bring back
Oh
Mark.
Lord, have mercy.
Um,
That
we,
that would be the way to go.
I mean, we hope that that's not where we're headed, but mm, like we said earlier in the show, Mark is still dead, and to bring back Moon Knight by sacrificing Hunter's Moon wouldn't be out of character for Marvel. But approval wise, 62.5, which is, I gotta say, that's really low for a defensive pick. 62.5% approval rating, 50% strongly approve, 12.5 somewhat approve, and 37.5 somewhat disapprove of Still Egyptian Hunter's Moon. You there?
I'm sort of gobsmacked. Like, what else would he be? I
I
mean,
don't know. I
that's
don't know what that. Yeah, that was a tough one. This one's definitely tough, and again, coming in off the Dynasty roster, Polynesian delegation. This guy's having a moment. He's been popping up a lot in the comics, and that's the Vision.
mhm,
Not the he doesn't have a solo, but he's in the Avengers. He's in
yeah.
several Avengers books, and he's doing his thing. Probably, yeah, we're still a ways away from Vision Quest. Who knows when that's gonna drop? But
Yep, that's gonna drop.
it's hard. He's a synthezoid, so it's hard to say like, can a synthezoid have a race? Can a synthezoid? No, not really. But and haven't quite adequately discussed with Tamati like how to imbue the Vision with an ethnicity. So
Well, I feel like the way that you would accomplish that is probably, I mean, since the main drafting part is done, probably the dynasty draft, maybe. Because if you get um trying to think what his name is, Phineas Horton, maybe try to snatch up Wonder Man before I get him.
no, you already have
Something like that.
no, you have Wonder Man in your dynasty.
Oh well, then yeah, Phineas Horton. Yeah. But like somebody who would be their brain patterns, because that's his origin, right? His brain patterns were copied from somebody. Technically, you
Mhm.
could change who they were copied from and be like, "Yep, that's the Vision." So
I suppose. I mean, it's still tough because how does the Vision articulate that? I mean, I hear you. It's a bit of a conundrum,
I
and
mean,
I suppose.
yeah, it does require some extra thought because he has the image inducer thing, which like that's he did he because I was recently reading some of like the 90s era Avengers, and it was like, oh yeah, he goes out as Victor Shade. So I mean that's the best I can do.
Right.
What I can think of.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, this is a situation where I can't really get too angry with the approval rating being a little bit shaky.
Yeah.
55% approval, 11 strongly approved, 11.1 strongly approved, 44.4 somewhat approved, and 44.4 somewhat disapproved. So no strong disapproving, but people are a little bit, you know,
Needing
confused.
more needing more
Exactly.
elaboration. Yeah.
Yeah. But from a strategic point of view, from a point scoring point of view, not a bad pick, but hard case to make from a storyline point of view and from a actually embodying the race.
And at least it was like later on. It wasn't like an early draft pick. So
Yeah, for sure. Moving on to the South Asian delegation. This was another one, off the dynasty roster for sure. But I think we've talked about this before, but Oswald Cobblepot,
mhm.
um, definitely is a white sounding name. It's definitely a character that, even though he's got his, for lack of a better term, like deformity, this is someone who tries often to cosplay privilege, tries to cosplay what we would imagine a tycoon who came from money to to look like,
Mm-hmm.
even though he's a criminal as well. But even his criminality is kind of tied up in the notion of what's the best way to say it? Um, Aristocracy.
Yeah.
He's portraying that. So, um, not to say that it couldn't work with the South Asian um, Oswald, but you know, it's it's a bit of a logical leap. Would you agree?
They would have to cast somebody who is light skinned, probably almost white passing.
And even then, though, but
Right. Exactly. Like
well,
I would have a difficult time because like
actually,
he
you know
don't.
what? I just thought about something.
Mhm.
Um, so there's two ways that you could play it. I guess one way to play it would be that the original Cobblepots were South Asian, and they
Mhm.
just took on that name so that they could blend in to racist American society.
Mhm.
Um, and over time, he's gotten lighter, but he knows that's kind of like a secret in his past that he's actually that the Cobblepots are like the Kapoors. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
alternatively, someone could have married into the Cobblepot family.
And then mysteriously the spouse kicked the bucket.
Well, if
I
you really want to get no, I was thinking if you really wanted to get dark, like if his mother was, brown, and then
Mhm.
like and then him being born looking like he does, like, leads to his family basically disowning him
Mm.
as like this product of not the right kind of genes, and now that's like the chip on his shoulder. So I guess
Hmm.
those would be the two ways to play it, right? That the Cobblepots are just like an anglicized way of blending into high
Hmm.
end. I think I like the first one more than the second one, but
I'm intrigued. I feel like maybe it could be and I know adoption is like the little easy cop out, but I feel like maybe he could have been adopted and he like way goes over too far with trying to make himself look like he fits in, like bleaching his skin, straightening his hair, all this other kind of stuff. But like his ethnic features, you can't deny looking at him that he's clearly not white. But he tries his
mhm.
best to like sort of look white and try to portray himself as rich. So he like wears these gaudy things all the time that make him look so very like I feel like something like that he would very much put on airs all the time to try to remind you that I belong here. I am rich. I am, I belong to this wealthy family and I am so and so.
Yeah. I mean, I could also see tying it back to what we were saying before, like if he was, born into the Cobblepot family,
Hmm.
and then just happens to have those features that the
Yeah.
rest of the family were trying to like, you know, ignore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That they were like, oh, we thought we bred that out of us. Like
Right.
and like he's becomes like the abandoned child, and then
Hmm.
but then he comes back around,
Yeah.
inherits the Cobblepot fortune, and is like, I'm still going to, adhere to this.
It requires a bit of thought, but I think it could work. It
We
wouldn't be my
all this is to say we need a backstory, guys. South
yeah,
Asian
yeah,
delicacy.
yeah.
Get
It
in
wouldn't be
there.
it wouldn't be my first thought, but I'm open to an explanation if it were offered.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, yeah, it's not a complete, it doesn't on its face, it doesn't completely break the character, but it does raise some questions that I'd like to hear some, exposition to fill in. And that brings us to, oh, did I say the approval rating? I did not. Sorry. 72.8% approval rating, 45.5 strongly approved, 27.3% somewhat approved, and 27.3 somewhat disapproved. And that brings us to the final pick in the final round of the season 7 regular season draft from the white delegation, Madeline Pryor, the Goblin Queen. Let's just a reminder: the white delegation also drafted Jean Grey, so they completed the set. Yeah, I mean, it's a defensive pick. White Jean, white Goblin Queen. It's out there. It's already it's in the canon.
It works. It works.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised the approval rating is so low, only 70% for white Madeline Pryor.
To be fair, that I think that poll was put out before the latest episode of X-Men '97. So yeah.
Well, yeah, before the latest one, but definitely in time for those of you who knew what was happening.
Right. Exactly.
to know what was coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's obviously white Jean, white Madeline, whiteness all around. But a little anticlimactic. We don't have a lot to say about that. I mean, she fits the bill.
Definitely a Caucasian.
Right, exactly. But yeah, that's it. So any overall broad thoughts about how the season shook out? The regular season.
To all the gingers I have not sided, I'll get you next time, my pretties. Like, I don't really know what else to say. But yeah, I feel like there were really strong picks. A lot of I didn't feel like anybody was slacking in terms of trying to put together a sound strategy, and it was a lot easier at the same time to sort of connect the dots of why certain choices were made, not just points wise, but also like kind of making the cultural connections.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I would have liked to hear a little bit more. I had to do a lot more on my side of trying to kind of imagine where the links were, but like you said, it wasn't too hard to connect the dots. But it's always better when the spokespeople for the delegations come in and they flesh it out a little bit more. So that listen, we're kicking off the season 7 dynasty draft early tomorrow. It's not tomorrow for me, but today for me, but perhaps today for you by when you listen to it. But we'll hopefully with the dynasty picks we'll get a little bit more in the fleshing out of what these characters mean and how they relate to and tie to some of the other dynasty picks that have been previously made. I'm really looking forward to that. As these delegations continue to sort of build out their rosters, so to speak, of characters and the importance. And I'm hoping still I know I'm always constantly saying, but hopefully there'll still be some trades when some delegations feel like a character is better served on another delegation, trying to make that work and get a character in return, or a pick in return or something like that, because we're trying to make something kind of like a universe, even if it's not, and what plays a role in that is just where these characters are in the zeitgeist and how they're imagined in the zeitgeist. And while there's a strategy element to it and saying like, well, this is characters out there scoring points, there's also the element of like, in your heart of hearts, when you think about this character, like, what do you think about this character as, and trying to align that. But on that note, let's leave it there. This is this is probably going to work out to be a double episode. But we're back in effect. We're going to be doing these week to week. You can find me at MTFIII on Twitter. You can find this podcast at all the places you find your podcasts. If you've been listening, hey, what's up? For the live, you can continue to see us probably more or less Sunday nights, occasionally Monday nights, but usually Sunday nights here on Twitter. Maybe we'll do some also on YouTube, but stay tuned there. But Racial Draft Pod on Twitter, racial.draft on Instagram and Threads. Follow the website, racialdraft.com, where you can vote in our polls. You can also vote in the polls on Twitter and on Threads. Where can I find you, Randy?
I'm on Twitter at Randy S0725. I use the hashtag superpower list, like as much as Elon allows me to actually use hashtags anymore. Yeah.
Okay. Well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed our, almost 4-hour ride going through the different picks and catching us up and bringing us up to speed. But moving forward, hopefully you know where to find us. Same race time, same race channel. But until then, all things are possible.